Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge, and today we are recapping and discussing Blood of My Blood, episode 7, Lucero non oro. Alright my friends, first off, I'm sure I mispronounced the Latin. That is not one of the one languages that I know. The one being English. But yeah, that is the Mackenzie motto, shine not burn, which we have talked about before because that was brought up in an earlier episode when Ellen was remembering her father, and I had a bit of a discussion about how her name also has something to do with shining brightly, and how no matter who she would marry, her name would still retain some of the Mackenzie fire, as it were. But I gotta tell you guys, I really truly haven't felt like this since season 4 and parts of season 5 of Outlander, where I truly don't want this to just be a hate on type of thing. Like, I truly don't want that, okay? Because I know what it's like when there's a thing that I really like and I want to talk to people about it and all they want to do is shit on it. But I've got to tell you, specifically parts of this episode, I was so angry. I thought I was angry in a previous episode. And when we got near the end, I was sitting in my seat just cussing up a storm, and so that's going to happen today. I know some of you don't care for me to cuss sometimes, but it's going to happen today because I'm pretty fucking mad at this episode. And again, that's what you're here for, y'all. That's what you're going to see. And I think that if you are someone who watches my Outlander reviews, you know, in general, things have been pretty smooth sailing, at least in season 6 and 7, for how, like, I just really enjoyed the comparisons that the show was making and how closely some things were followed. Of course, they had to skip stuff. There's hundreds and hundreds of pages of the big books, right? They can't follow it all perfectly. But I felt that the storylines they were picking were very good character pieces, and I really enjoy what they're doing. And so often my discussions are more of like gushing about it, or talking about the finer points, or talking about how the actors are choosing to do it. And then we have stuff like this, where there are parts that I'm like, ooh, so good. And then there are parts where I'm like, what are you fucking doing to characters that I kind of loved? You know, like, I know a few, I don't want to just like jump all the way through, but like, there are certain characters that like, I know they're shady, but like, I still kind of loved them, even though they were, you know, like, they were lovable to me, even though they were sometimes foils to Jamie and Claire, you know? But seeing them in this one, I really don't want that to change about how I feel about them in Outlander. Because it's like, if this is who you were as young men, let's just say it, I want you to die. Like, I want them to die painful deaths for what they're doing to their sister. And it's this weird place because, I don't know, we'll talk about it, but hopefully in processing with you guys, I'll get to where I want to get, because one of the things I felt by the end of it was, I feel like this is a chess match. And the thing is, though, is that Ellen isn't just playing against one person. She's playing against about 4 or 5. Some people don't even know they're playing chess with her. Some of them do. And the illustration of her actually taking the chess piece off the board early in the episode is something that brought back to mind when we had the final scene, because it really felt like one that was you're in check, right? Is it going to be checkmate in the next episode? But it really felt like Ellen got very soundly put in check, possibly in a few different places. If you're someone who understands chess metaphors, which I barely do, and most of what I understand is from movies and TV, I feel like that's where she's been maneuvered into. And the question is, will she be able to get out of it? I don't know. I mean, I know, but like, I don't know. So yeah, we gotta go through the episode, which had some really cool things being moved forward. Obviously, we did have a very positive possible turn for Henry and Julia by the end of this episode. So that's good. But damn, we still got 3 to go. And I can't foresee things going too easy too quickly, right? And we do know there's a second season, at least. So I doubt we're really going to get HEA situations here either. But before we go into it, still, I know I'm rambling for a good 10 minutes before we start, but there is one other piece of info that I collected that I just wanted to bring up because I want to have an easier attitude about this. It's probably not going to happen. Okay. Like, just know that I'm very passionate about this. Outlander is like one of the properties that I am the most passionate about. And if you've ever watched my book reviews or things through the years, like, I'm already a very passionate woman. Add Outlander in it, and I could not only talk for hours about it, but I can also go 10 rounds in discussing all the angles of it, right? But one thing that really helped is, so Diana Gabaldon starts a comment thread each week for each video, right? And a lot of her fans just shit all over this show. And she will periodically jump in and play with them too. That is something that's great about her. And I didn't see the comment they were commenting on, but someone I think was talking about who the identity of the child was going to be, because at the end of the last episode we didn't know what the name of Henry and Julia's son was, and people were like, oh, it'll be cool to see who he fits into in history, like who he's going to be. And Diana said, well, she literally was like, Claire doesn't have a brother, so whoever he may be, it is complete bum fluffery. Anyway, she called it bum fluffery, which I just love so much. So that's something to remember as well. And as always, though, absolutely love all the comments you guys are making and the conversations that get started. There are some of you who are really enjoying the show, and that's why I say I'm sorry when I feel so negative about it. I hope that those of you talking in the comments are still enjoying this. I mean, please don't watch if I'm hurting your thoughts about it, but I know a lot of you also agree with me, and that's very validating for my heart that is just pissed at a lot of the stuff that I see, because yeah, it does piss me off a lot, certain things that they're doing with these characters, and I can't help that. Okay, I can't help that, because this has been a huge part of my life for 10 years, and so to see some of the choices that are being made and the things that they do for the sake of entertainment pisses me off, especially when there is plenty to the story that they could tell that isn't complete bumfluffery, as the queen herself said. Because whatever they're trying to do here is just, it's ridiculous. But anyway, we got answers to a few things in this one too, which I think will be fun to discuss. Because one of the things that got brought up last week is I was talking about a certain thing that I was like, oh, they've got to do this in in one of these episodes, and someone was trying to give me the history for something, and I was like, no, I know when that thing happened, because it was talked about in another episode of Outlander about when this happened. And so I know that it had happened, but I wanted to see Julia actually do it. And so we get to see that in this episode. So let's dive in. This episode begins with a little intro. This begins with, there's a raid on some Grant cattle. And it is possible that Dougal is responsible for this raid. And so Bug and Malcolm Grant and Henry all get woken up like in early morning hours, and they get told about it. And Henry is just completely like done with life kind of thing, or done with this time period kind of thing. And they're like, he's like, Ned wouldn't approve this, because Ned and Henry have a pretty good relationship at this point for being the two Blade heirs of these families. And he's like, I don't believe that, you know, that Calm and Ned would have like okayed this, and Malcolm is like, yeah, I don't think that this would have happened. We need to talk to Ellen about it. And Bug is like, well, let me get the master. And Malcolm is like, no, leave him be. Father isn't feeling too well. I'll handle it. And that's the end of the part before the intro. Now, a thing to mention on this is that that does hurt my heart a little bit, just because I do know that the man who plays the Grant Laird, even though I don't like him, we don't like him in this story, that man has passed away since this series was filmed. And so I'm sure it was already planned, you know, for Malcolm Grant to be like taking over his father's affairs. But that still gave me just a little real life moment sadness where he's like, he hasn't been feeling too well. So just things to have compassion for in real life, that man has passed away. So then we have the intro, and then we come back to Castle Leoch, and we have Ellen and Mrs. Fitz are working on her trousseau. So they're making her wedding sheets, and they're talking, and Ellen's very subdued about everything, and Mrs. Fitz is like, is there any questions that you have about like the marriage bed? And they're trying, and Ellen's just kind of like, no, I'm fine. Not saying like, I don't need you to explain anything to me. And then Colm comes in, and he is asking, you know, how things are coming along, and saying that she should use their mother's items. And she's like, you know, our mother didn't have any. She was married in haste. She doesn't have any trousseau. And he's like, well, you might have to do the same thing, because we need to push this marriage along. And we're like, fuck you. So he's trying to push it up even faster on her. So then we go to the churchyard, and we have Brian and Julia there. And the baby is supposed to be baptized and like christened at this time. And Julia has asked Brian instead to do a little ceremony for them ahead of time, which again, one of my like biggest like kind of complaints in this whole episode is that people do stuff really out in the open, the type of things that they're doing. And this is one really specifically to me that I'm like, you just are doing this out in the open on the side of the church. But either way, Brian kind of, he does a little like, they do a little ceremony, and she names her son William Henry Beecham is what they name him. And then also the sword that Brian has, I just wanted to say a quick shout out. That is absolutely Jamie Fraser's sword later on. So that was cool. It has the same like hilt on it and everything. That gave me a little bit of a squee there. So then we go inside the church for a moment, and we see that people are talking to Davina, and there's not very many people inside. And the thing is that this wasn't clicking for me until someone said it, but this isn't a Catholic church. It's a Protestant church. We'll come back around to that. But that is also part of the reason why there's not a lot of people there, because this is a very odd choice to a lot of the people there, that they would be baptizing this baby Protestant. But of course, Simon Fraser has a specific reason for doing that, of course. So yeah, then we, like, people are talking to Davina. There's these couple of ladies who are telling her congratulations to the mistress and the laird. And Davina is picking up on the fact that those ladies do believe that Julia is already married to Simon. And so Davina is kind of soaking that in. And so I will say, after our horrible last episode with Davina, we do seem to fully have Davina on our side, okay? So that felt like a big breath of relief. It feels like a lot of the fog of her, you know, just indoctrination and of life has cracked a little bit. And she's definitely on Julia's side more. Of course, she still has to walk a fine line. Like, there's no joke about that. But I will say Simon Lovett is losing control of his brood a little bit, I will say. And I'm happy to see it, okay? Because not only do we see Davina working with Julia for some things, but we'll see Brian really, I mean, he's slowly really trying to buck against his father. And I mean, I think the what's it called? The rubber is going to meet the road real soon, too, with some of the choices that Simon Lovett makes to try to control things in this episode. But he sends Davina to go get Julia from outside. Julia's trying to feed the baby, and he's not calming down, and so she starts singing the song, okay? I knew this had to show up, but we all knew it had to show up. She starts singing the Seaside song to baby William, and she even says, she's like, I wish this worked for you. It always worked for Claire. So that's just a little reminder that she sang that song to Claire. She's singing that song to baby William. So the song existed. And this is what someone brought up. So that song was first released in 1907. So that would have been when, you know, like, when Julia was young, right? So it was definitely a song that maybe was sung to her even. Or she definitely had heard it because she had sang it to Claire before. So it definitely existed. And that was the thing that, like, I knew that. I don't know if that was clear because I had people answering the question for me. I knew that that song was around, obviously, when Claire was young. I knew that because she has said that's why she sang it to, like, Faith. Because she remembered her mom singing it to her. It's one of the few memories Claire has of her mom is of her singing that song. So I knew that that song was around. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that. My question just was, I wanted to see it in this show. Like, we needed them to place it somewhere. And so when Claire was being born in that flashback thing, when the radio was playing, I was wondering if they were going to play that song there so that we would know it was out and everything, or they were going to show Julia singing it to Claire. That's what I was trying to bring up in a previous episode, is that I knew the song existed already because I had done research on it before when the song was brought up in Outlander. I just thought that would have been a good place to place it, is having it be like on the radio when Claire was born. So just to clear that up, because I had someone answering my question in the comments, and like, I appreciate it, but like, I already knew that because I'd looked it up. I was just waiting for it to be placed in this show, because if you've watched up through where Outlander is at, you'll know that that song comes up again, and it comes up in the context that someone who shouldn't know it knows it. And that is kind of the whole big mystery that they left us hanging on at the end of that season, is why that person, which again, I'm trying not to spoil it for people who aren't caught up because I know some of you aren't. Why does that individual know that song, and how did they get it? Claire's thinking one thing, but we as the, you know, readers and watchers are like, the thing that Claire is thinking can absolutely not be where it came from. But that doesn't mean there aren't other travelers who are either possibly going to be related to Julia and Henry as well, or at this point we know there are a million different travelers that have made it there, you know, so someone else had sung it and it got back around, right? So anyway, just wanted to sprinkle that in. That is where we finally get to see the song dropped in as she's singing it to him. So then we have Davina. They'll come and talk to her, and she's trying to calm her down. And again, this is where, like, Davina is still very much like, this is how it is. You got to do it this way. But she's being much gentler. She's much kinder. She feels much more on her side. And she tells her, she's like, well, maybe he won't force you to marry him because the people always think so. So he can't publicly marry you now because the child won't be legitimate. The people already think that you're married. And so she's like, I keep expecting him to, like, spring it on me. And Davina's saying, well, it seems people already believe that you are. So anyway, she ends up going inside. And then we see Murtaugh show up and give Brian the cold shoulder. Not totally surprised about that or anything. But then also, Simon's a little douchebag. Like, we know he's definitely a douchebag, because he is, like, annoyed that she is leaking she's a brand new mom. And he's like, we need to get you a wet nurse, which is just like, I hate him so much. I hate him so much. Okay, so then we skip back to Leok, and Ned is sharing the news about the cattle raid and that it possibly is Dougal who did this, and that Dougal hasn't come back with the group who went traveling. And it appears that he is going to a place where I didn't fully catch the names of all of these things, so pardon me, I'm being a bit vague. But the point is, he didn't come home with the group. He went somewhere, and he didn't come back with the gold that he was supposed to come back with. And now there's these assumptions that he possibly stole cattle from the Grants, and the Grants believe that. And Colum is like, we will literally be fucked over so hard if this is what happened. And so Ellen actually offers to go to the home where this Jacobite get-together is going to be, because she is friendly with the woman of the house there. And Dougal is like, not Dougal, I'm sorry, Colum. I'm messing up their names here. Colum is like, why would we send you? And she's like, well, because I'm just a woman. And I could be inviting her to my wedding in person, because she's a bigger woman. And she's like, and while I'm there, I'll try to find Google. I'm going to leave that. Try to find Dougal and bring him home, and their money, because the money that he's supposed to have gotten is supposed to be her dowry to marry Malcolm. And so she gets sent on her way to do that. And I want to tell you, I made a note. Colum looks and acts like King Joffrey in this episode, like a quieter, less ranty version of him, but I was getting serious King Joffrey vibes from him in this, and I just wanted to stab him in the eyeball. So mad. And so when Ellen walks out, Ned is like, that seems like a good plan, and he's like, your father really trusted her, and he's like, my father was a man with a plan within a plan, and that means it makes me nervous to trust her. So then we go back to the church, and Simon has had the baby baptized. And of course, because he's been told that his child will be the king, what does he do but name the child after himself? So we have the new Simon Fraser of Lovett, who gets baptized as a Protestant, okay? So as everyone is walking out of the church, Brian goes up to his dad, and he's like, no congratulations from you. And he is like, I mean, why do you think people aren't here? You've baptized him as a Protestant. That's kind of spitting in the face of a lot of people. And he's like, well, it's law that no Catholic can be king. And so I'm setting things up for his child to be the king or whatever. And he's like, all right, well, whatever. And then he sends him after Murtaugh because he has a job for Murtaugh and Brian. And anyway, Brian goes out to get Murtaugh, and Murtaugh punches him in the face, and he's like, you stole my girl. And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know who she was, blah, blah, blah. Everything we knew that, like, it's tough because Murtaugh, he'd never even spoken to Ellen. Like, literally, this episode is, like, the first time he speaks to her, okay? But also, Brian didn't tell him, and he left it for him to find out, which we knew was bad. And let's be honest, Brian's a bit of a coward in some aspects still. He's getting better. I know. I was real hard on Brian in some previous episodes, and people were defending him. You don't gotta defend Brian to me. I know he's gonna get there. I know he will become a man that I respect. He's just not there yet. He's young. He hasn't really had the chance to prove himself yet. He's just done what he's told, and I believe he'll get there, okay? I believe he'll get there. But lying to your friend about it, whether or not I think Murtaugh's in the right either, it doesn't matter. Like, you knew that he liked her, and you should have said. Because now it leaves this rift that is really painful to watch. But anyway, so they're going to get sent to this same place where this Jacobite meeting is happening. Because the thing is that Simon Lovett isn't 100% going in on this cause yet. Because, again, he wants to set up his son for the best possible situation for it. But yeah, it also is like, he's sending them on an errand, but he also does want to know, like, what the situation is and, like, if they should throw in with them, if they're going to have enough resources, if it's going to be a big enough rebellion, if it's time to throw in with it or not. One other thing I did want to comment on before I go too far past it is that, yes, Simon Lovett does have a Simon Lovett Jr., but something to remember is that that son is actually younger than Jamie is. Because I believe that Jamie's like uncle, because would it be his uncle? Yeah, is younger than him. So this child that he's calling Simon Lovett isn't the one that we'll see later on. So again, as the queen herself says, anything that happens with this baby is fully bumfluffery because he doesn't exist. I hope that means nothing tragic happens to this child, because that's what's scaring me. That will happen, but he doesn't exist. So whatever they do with him, it doesn't affect what actually happens in Outlander. Like, I have to remind myself of that, you know? I do. So then, though, this one final exchange is that Brian is like, well, what if I refuse to go? And he's like, well, you could, but then your mother would pay for it. So Simon has already clocked that last beating that Brian took, it didn't do anything, right? You know, and Brian had said that. He was like, I think it's the last time it's going to happen, because it didn't work. So now when punishing the man won't work, he's going to threaten his mother. So part of my prediction, though, is that when they all end up leaving, I think Davina will come with. And I hope she does, because we've got to take her with. Like, I don't know. Or she's going to die. That's the other thing I'm worried about happening. Like, I am, because Jamie never comments on, like, knowing his grandmother, from what I recall. I don't believe we ever hear about her. You know, if Jamie had been raised with, like, his grandmother living with them, I think we would have heard about her at some point. We never hear about either of Jamie's grandmothers. So I have a feeling that she could die or sacrifice herself in some way, because honestly, if Simon can't threaten Davina, there's nothing that could keep Brian there. So I don't know. I don't wish for that. I feel like that would be a full redemption of Davina if that happened. But I'm just popping it out there. That could definitely be a tragic death they do that doesn't affect things overall. You know, we know Simon Lovett can't die. There are many people in this that can't die. Like, we know Bug isn't going to die. We know, whatever. I can't list them all out. But there aren't many people in the landscape of this show that can get killed. I mean, except for, like, Henry and Julia and their baby, because technically they're already dead in the other series, and Davina. So I'd say, like, prove me of someone who would matter, right? Of course, like, Bullock can die, or, like, some of the other people, but I mean, of people that it would hurt one of our characters if they died, I mean, Davina's the only one. So I'm just trying to mentally prepare myself for that, because if there was going to be a thing where she knew that her son will never leave, either she could take herself out or something like that. Anyway, that was a side note, but it's a note that I made where I'm like, the only way that I see him being able to leave and not wanting his mom to be punished is if his mom died. And we don't know what happens with Davina. So just putting it out there. So anyway, Brian agrees to go. And then Simon tells his man to make sure to bring the priest around later on. They don't fully sign, I should have mentioned this earlier, they don't fully sign the registry about the baby yet or anything. And they're going to bring him around later, and the plan is to have the wedding while Brian is gone, because he does foresee Brian trying to interfere with the wedding. Okay, so then we switch over to Henry at the, like, tavern, and Ned shows up, and he's ready to offer all these excuses to Henry about, like, hey, we had nothing to do with this raid, and Henry was like, yo, dude, I already know. I was here for 5 minutes, and we found out who really did it. It's this guy named, like, what is it, like, Rob Roy. Like, we know, it's fine. But, and Henry Ward's Ned, he says you need to stay away from the Jacobite cause. And it's definitely a, like, future warning, too, where he's like, he's not just saying stay away from it because it's dangerous. He's like, you need to stay out of it no matter the cause. Like, stay out. It's not because I'm English. It's because you should stay out. And he gives that prolific warning, and Ned's like, well, okay. And then Henry says he's planning to leave. And he's like, dude, if you try to get away, like, the Grants are not going to let you leave. Like, basically confirming this is like indentured servitude. And he's like, you would need to completely disappear. And Henry is like, I'm pretty sure I have the ability to do that, right? And this worried me for a moment too, because anyway, we'll get around to it, because there's a scene that explains it. But I'll be honest, I'd been forgetting about Claire too. And yeah, it isn't just his wife that he has in his life, you know. There are other people who would be missing him. And if he truly believes his wife is dead, it makes sense to want to go back to his daughter, who he knows is there, right? So we'll leave that. Okay, so then we have Ellen arriving at this place she said she'd go. And she goes in to meet with the lady and offers her an invitation. And the lady's like, well, this was a very interesting time for you to show up. And she's like, are you sure you're just here to invite me to your wedding? And she's like, no, I'm actually here to see my brother. And she's like, okay, well, you can go look for him if you want to. Take care. And then we discover that Brian and Murtaugh are also here. And so is Dougal. And so is Ellen. And things are going to get real messy real fucking fast at this place. Okay? They're going to get real messy. So Rob Roy is also here. And there's just a lot. It's a hotbed of activity. Let's just say that. Then we quickly switch over to Julia. And this is too where, like, Davina is really getting in on our good side. Okay, like I said, really warmed up to Davina in this episode. For as dark as they took everything in the last episode, Davina, I'm warming up to her. But it does continue to put little pebbles in the pile where I think Davina is going to sacrifice herself somehow. Because she really is the one that would be used against, honestly, both Brian and Julia at this point. Because Julia is caring for her too. But Julia lets Davina in on a little thing. She is drying out some seeds and spices. And she explains that they are a seasoning that can dampen the desire of a man. And so she asked Davina if she would help her get it into his food. Because she knows he's going to marry her. Like, he knows what's going to happen. Like, she knows. And she knows that even though she's just had a child, that he's going to want to consummate things with her. And it actually is a moment of levity because it was funny. Like, I was like, oh, we needed that. Like, we needed a moment to laugh about something. And it's like she picks up the stalk of it and it, like, bends over and they laugh together. And it was great. So it was really good to see them on each other's side for a moment. I just fear what it means in the future. That's why I feel bittersweet about it. I'm like, oh gosh, what is this going to mean? Okay, then we switch back and Ellen finds Dougal, and this is sad, but Murtaugh sees Ellen looking at Brian. He, of course, gets the weird look on his face again. She's trying to convince Dougal to leave just in time for the meeting to start. Then we switch over to Henry going back to the brothel to see the woman there. And he's trying to retrieve the necklace that he left. So the one with the saint on it that Julia had given him. And she is like trying to play the act. And he is out of his psychosis now where he's like, I'm sorry, I was in grief. I need to go back. He's like, I lost my wife and child. And this is where he says, he's like, I have someone who's still waiting for me. And he's talking about Claire. And he's like, if I can't find my wife here, this time has taken too much from me. I need to go home to home to my daughter. And I feel for her, like I really feel for her. And I wonder who this character might be later, like if we'll see more of her. I really felt for her. It's a complex character to play. You know, there's no blame that I have for her at this point. I don't know if she will fuck something up, but truly it's just a woman doing her job, and she finds a man in there who's so kind and broken, you know, and she does look out for him in ways that like no one else is then, you know. And while it is very sad that he had a moment of breaking and that he slept with her, I don't hold anything against Henry. I don't know if people do, like not only because he was having a mental break, but he was in so much pain. And though she let that progress when she probably knew she shouldn't, I think she's a little bit in love with this dashing Englishman who comes in and would often just sleep in her bed. And so I don't hold any anger towards her. She's just trying to survive. He's a kind man, and now he's saying he won't be back. And my heart broke for her a little bit, right? I wish she had some other options. I hope what he gave her was enough. I don't know that she would be able to leave. Like, she seems to be a pretty prized worker at this place where they're at, you know? So I don't know if she even could, right? But that was a very bittersweet moment. So then Dougal ends up handing like her off to Murtaugh for a moment, which is strange. And they actually have their first conversation we've ever seen on page, which is just wild to me. But it doesn't last very long because Grant has showed up with some officers of the Crown, actually. And Grant, again, Malcolm, who, again, I really like this character. And I don't love how he's manipulated by so many people around him. So I hope he's smart and he will make good choices. But he showed up there, and she is like, it's funny too, because like it feels like she's putting on an act, but she also is telling him what happened. Like, she may have had ulterior motives, but she did show up there to find her brother and convince him to come back home. And she doesn't want him to find out because it could ruin their marriage. So all the things she's telling him aren't exactly lies. Well, except for the part where she doesn't actually want to marry him. And she's maybe kind of hoping that he'll want to call it off because of a scene we'll see later. But I just don't love seeing him be manipulated because I care for him. But he does. He's like, I do believe you, and I also know that your brother didn't do it. He might be here, but I know he didn't steal my cattle, and we actually brought officers with. And so Grant ends up being like, I'm going to handle it, but then they're like, well, but you're Jacobites here, and you may not want to have him arrested for cattle thievery, but we might be arresting him for something else. And so a fight breaks out. And everybody's fighting, running. And again, this is where I say these two kids have the worst discretion ever. Okay? They're just so bad because they escape out of the church. And Brian's all like gonna kiss her out in the open. And so what happens? But Dougal sees. Okay? Now, do I love how he's gonna act about this? No. But Brian, you are so dumb. Like, my sweet boy. You are so stupid. Like, you were gonna kiss her out in the open, all right? And Dougal sees and punches him and is like, oh, Fraser, Ellen, really? And so he grabs her and takes her away. And, and then Murtaugh goes off with them instead of with Brian, which... So now Dougal knows, and immediately Ellen's trying to mitigate it with whatever power she has, and she's like, I'm going to tell Colm that you did this, and he's like, girly, like, no, it doesn't matter, like, this is awful, you're going to fuck stuff up, which I do want to say, dude, you were literally getting involved with the Jacobites, which could ruin everything, like, you're whatever, but they're just battling back and forth, and he grabs her, and he takes her, and now they're separated again. So now we go back to Castle Leathers, and we have the little wedding happen. Julia is forced to give her son off to a wet nurse, and the marriage happens. We skip over the actual wedding ceremony, but we know that it happened. And then we switch between Henry, who is riding to Craignadoon, but before he can get there, he runs into Bug and the other men from the Grants, and he's all like, I'm just letting loose, like, what are you trying to take me anywhere? And they literally march him back to the Grants. So that happened. Then we switch back to Julia and Simon getting married, and he says, we're going to consummate our marriage tonight, and they have dinner, and this dinner tastes very good, he says. What special spice did the cook add? And we all know what he added there, so there's that. Anyway, yeah. So then we switch back to Mrs. Fitz and Ellen now working on the trousseau again, and Fitz finds the strip of Fraser tartan that is within her box, and it is a strip, and immediately she's like, were you handfast to a Fraser? And Ellen like isn't saying anything, and Fitz is like, you need to hide this better, because if someone finds it, for all our sakes, you'd be in trouble, all those things. Then she gets called to the Great Hall, and this is when, oh my gosh, I get so fucking angry about this, but she gets called to the Great Hall, and Henry is there. Henry and Ned are there, and Henry is sharing that they received some information from Lord Lovett that Ellen possibly isn't pure, and so they're requesting the test to see if she's still a maiden, if they can have this wedding go forth. And this is where I feel such rage. I can't even express it. Like, last night I was so mad. It was 11:30 at night, and I was screaming, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble from my neighbors. Because not only does Colm then walk up to her and say, you better pray that you pass, but then Dougal gets in a jab too and says, you're not as clever as you thought you were, sister. Walks away. Henry is saying, I'm sorry that we have to do this. I'm sure he thinks it's just as barbaric as anything is. And I wrote, who are these people? Like, truly, the depth of hate that I saw in Colm's eyes when he looks at her. I don't understand. Like, with Dougal, it's interesting because the way that Dougal and her spar, yes, he gets a feisty, like, anger with her, but it doesn't quite feel the same maliciousness, right? I don't know. The way that Colm looks at her when he says, you better pray you pass, just the depth of hate that he has for his sister, who loves him. Like, of all of them we've seen, like, she cared and loved for her brother more than anyone else does. And to see that vitriol in his eyes when he says that, I truly don't understand. And, like, I'm serious, guys. I was so angry. These are tears of anger to see this woman and to see her then, you know, they'll kill her for this. They'll kill her for this. And I mean, I know how it all ends up. I know how it will go. But to see their absolute vitriol for her is, I'm like, are these the fucking Lannisters? Like, what is this? Like, they're just not the men that I know. Because here's the thing too, at least the Colm that I feel like I know, I'm not saying he wouldn't have the expectations that his sister would do what he asks of her. But for him to just, like, assume that it's true and that, well, I guess you'll just be killed if it's not, and just, it's just so evil to me. And it doesn't ring true. I'm sorry it doesn't. Because even if, to me, if they're like, there's just no defense that they put up for her at all. They just, like, I don't understand it, okay? Tell me if I'm the only one, all right? Like, I just feel that this show has made Coleman Dougal so evil. Like, they are, I'm sorry, it's evil to me for you to think that of your sister, for you to just continually treat her that way. And I don't care what the time was. I don't. This is still storytelling. This is still a narrative, right? How am I supposed to have any compassion for these men that like, again, I love these characters in Outlander. I don't think they're the greatest of men, the bestest there is, but I love those characters. And this show is trying to strip all of the respect and love that I have for every Mackenzie. They're doing it with Myrta. I don't like Myrta. They're doing it with Jocasta. I hate her. They're doing it with Coleman Dougal. I hate all of them. Like, I genuinely don't enjoy seeing them. Like, the feeling in my gut when I was going to watch this episode, I hate it. But, okay, let's get to the last bit, because we do have our tiny bit of hope by the end. So we'll see where it goes. You know, everything's got to have its darkest hour. The sun's coming for me too. I got to move it along. There, we got to have our darkest hour before we can have any triumph, you know. So we go back, and Brian is finally getting home, and he finds out that the wedding happened without him. His father rightly knew he tried to stop it. But guess what? Guess what? Brian tried to kiss Ellen in public. And so Balak, he now knows. And he tells Brian how proud he is that he was able to get in the middle of this relationship and how he's finally done something to help him out. And, you know, now Brian's going to find out that Ellen's going to have to do this test and that he's the one who's made it so she won't pass, you know? So she's going to be in a lot of danger. So we'll see how he steps up. I have a good feeling about it, but we'll see. So a seed of doubt was planted, and now he actually has some basis for them to test her, and he has a pretty good feeling that she won't pass, and now there'll be a scandal that the Mackenzies may never pull out of, you know? So now, though, we go to the marriage bed of Julia and Simon. And I always feel for the poor actors who had to do this scene, because thankfully that's all that I was thinking of. The man is trying to get his willy to stand at attention, and it's not working. And so poor Julia is just having to like lay there, and he's really trying to jerk it. And again, I'm like, I feel so bad for these actors, because how awkward that is. Also because you know that he's not doing that with his actual penis. So the man is just awkwardly like fake jerking it in her face. Oh, it just made me laugh. And so finally he like gets out of the bed. And I will say this actor, however much I hate the guy, but like he's pretty fit for his age. Good for him. He only plays disgusting people, so I feel bad for him. But Julia's like, well, I'll go back to my room. And he's like, no, bring me some food. And maybe that'll help bring this fox out of its hole. I think your problem is you need to get the fox to go into a hole, but it isn't working for you. So, yeah, Julia's like, sure. And he's like, maybe some of that good food that we had for dinner, right? So she's like, sure, my dear, I'll do that. So then we show Balak taking the minister home. I knew things weren't going to go good for that guy, right? Because you can't let the person who knows the secret live. So I knew it wasn't going to go well for that minister. But then our final scene that we have, finally, finally one of them is going to have proof. Julia gets out of the bed and she's kind of cleaning up, and she goes over to the desk, and on the desk is a letter from Henry Grant, the Bladier of Clan Grant, and it's Henry's handwriting, which of course Julia knows better than any handwriting in the world, and that is such a clever device. I just, finally something that comes together so beautifully. I wanted to cheer. And she recognizes his handwriting, and she's like, it's Henry, the Bladier. That is my man's handwriting. I know it. And she says, Henry. And she kisses the letter, and now she knows. Okay, now she knows. So that's great. And, you know, we got to be a little bit happy that the Grants are such controlling a-holes, because they kept Henry from going back without her. So that's a good thing, at least. We hope he doesn't try to sneak away before she gets the chance. So, again, what I hope will happen, because that was the end of that shit show of an episode, what I hope will happen is that Julia and Brian will come up with a plan to go. And here's the thing, I believe, wait, has Henry talked to Brian? Maybe he hasn't, but he will have seen him. He will have seen him. So I hope that Julia is able to go with him somehow. And again, this is my speculation though, because he's going to be afraid of what's going to happen to his mom. They're going to threaten Davina. It's going to be tough to be able to leave with Simon's heir, because that's who he sees as his heir. So I don't know how they'll be able to make that work, but I don't know. I think Davina's going to sacrifice herself somehow for them to get out of there. I don't know. But either way, either she's going to get Brian to give a note to Ned for Henry or something, or he'll get something to Henry, or she's going to try to run with him. I just think that's dangerous, because if she's going to run with him and the baby, that could be bad. But if he's able to get something to Henry, I don't know. So I don't know quite how that will work out, but at least finally we have a ray of sunshine that Julia knows Henry's in the time too, that he is distinctly there. This isn't just, this isn't just a whim. Like, she has proof that as of however long ago from when that letter got there, that he's alive and he's there. So that's good. As looking forward to, as for a rating for this one, I'm still sitting at like a 6 for these, because there was so much of this that I just hated. This is another episode that I wouldn't rewatch any part of it. I hated every moment I was watching it until the very end, because these characters aren't who I would expect at all, and I don't enjoy it, okay? Even some of the moments of Ellen, I feel for her so much, it's hard to watch it. I still don't understand what their plan was supposed to be. Like, again, I wish when they were in that church, after they made love, they'd come up with a plan to be together. Like, they hand fast before they had sex, so I don't know, so that he felt that she was actually his, like, wife. But what was your plan to get her? You know? And I know she says in the moment, she's like, I can't end the marriage, but he can. If I can, like, prove to him that we wouldn't be suited, maybe he will, like, end it. That is not a plan. That's a vague hope and a dream, okay? And now that you're gonna have the virgin test, my thought is that I don't think that Malcolm will want her to be killed. Like, my guess will be he's gonna be very sad boy sad, and is like, this marriage can't happen, but also you can't, we're not going to have her killed, right? Because there is a scene where she is sitting in her room. It appears that she's locked in a room. I think that's what will happen. She's sitting at her desk there, and she says, I'll take his name to my grave. So to me, I assume that is like Calmer Dougal questioning her and her being like, I'm not going to tell you. Because again, I've said this before, in the lore, in their story, there is a time where Ellen will stab Dougal to get away. So I don't know if, like, he'll be the one, like, guarding her, because no one else in the, like, what if no one else in Clan Mackenzie is willing to, like, hold Ellen back kind of thing? But she stabs Dougal at one point to get away. And so I wonder if she'll be being held captive, or if maybe Murtaugh will get assigned to her, but because he has a soft spot for her and he loves his cousin, that he'll help her get out. Like, I don't know. But we know by the end of this that Murtaugh will, like, be on Brian's side and be someone that they get help from. So I'm hoping we'll get to see that. So those are just some of my vague plans for it, right? Like, I know we've got to be getting to that point where, you know, they're going to be within reach and her brothers are going to be trying to keeping her away. And she's going to be like, I'm already disgraced in your eyes. You can't use me for any political marriage. I'm already handfast to Brian. And they're going to be like, doesn't matter. You don't get to make this choice. And she's going to make a stab at it and get out of there. Like, that is how she leaves, right? But I also believe at one point she gets kidnapped. So I'm pretty sure Simon Lovett kidnaps her as well. So I don't know when that part will happen either. Maybe Davina dies in that part with, like, helping her get away from some, like, I don't know. Maybe Julia is still there and they both escape together. I don't know, because Ellen knows who Julia is now. They've met before. So I don't know. These are all just the things I'm throwing out. The things I know for fact that will happen is I know that Ellen and Brian will get to be together, right? I know that she stabs Dougal at some point. And I know that eventually the Mackenzies do gift them Lollybrock, if I'm correct. Because someone pointed out in one of the comments that they get Lollybrock from the Mackenzies. And that, I think, is the final, like, they try to make up at the very end. And that might not happen this season. But I think that ends up being, like, a gift to them to show that peace has happened, right? So those are the things I know for sure. The Henry and Julia stuff, I have no idea. That is the story that I get the most, like, hope from, even though I don't know. Like, again, this William Henry Beecham, it's not a real character. So what could happen to this baby, right? What might happen to this baby? And again, to remind you, Simon Lovett Jr., the one that we see in Outlander, is younger than Jamie. So it's not this baby. It's not this baby. So what does that mean? Does that mean Henry and Julia are able to escape with that baby and they live out their lives in the past because they aren't sure if their child can travel, so they can't go back? Because we know they never go back. I had someone comment in one of the videos that Julia and Henry, we know that they go back. No, we don't. We do not know that, because Claire believes her parents died in a car accident. So I believe the car accident that led them to going through the stones, like, is when they died, like, they were seen again. So we don't know that they go back, because, like, they don't. So what does that mean in this time? You know, that's the whole point, is, like, in Diana's word, like, they died. So whatever the show's gonna do with them, we don't know. You know, we don't know. We just know that Claire never sees her parents again. So that's a bummer. But anyway, still ended up talking for an hour about this one. It was tough watching, you guys. The next episode, I think, will be even tougher. I gotta tell you, like I said, I get this pit in my stomach leading up to watching each episode, and I don't like feeling that way. I haven't felt that way since, like, season 5, okay? Season 5, I also felt that way of Outlander. So, yeah, I'm just not enjoying myself. And again, I'm sorry for the people who want it to be more exciting. I'm not going to give up, but that also means you get my raw, unfiltered reactions. And lately they've been, I hate everything and everyone involved in this. So, anywho, thank you so much for watching this. As always, keep the discussions friendly down below, though. We can definitely hate on the episode without, like, being cruel about it. But yeah, I did love Diana's quote, as I said, that everything to do with the child is all bum fluffery. So that helped galvanize me a bit too. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye.